She thought the world would bend to her every demand, until 1 minute erased her entire life. Her son vanished, her husband walked away, her so-called friends slammed their doors shut, and strangers filmed her downfall like the season finales of a reality show. She wanted justice, but she forgot that karma works faster than the law. And when that same royal guard appeared on screen, with a promotion, it was clear this wasn't just a fall, this was a reckoning. But let's rewind to where it all began. Los Angeles, the land of eternal sunshine and unlimited bad decisions. Tourists were packed like sardines along the streets, snapping pictures of literally everything. The Hollywood sign, a guy dressed as Spider-Man eating a hot dog, even random fire hydrants like they were historic landmarks. But today, one thing stood out among the chaos. Right in the heart of it all, like an unshakable monolith of discipline, stood Jack Collins, 32 years old, former Marine, and now a Royal Guard, standing as still as a statue. His uniform was impeccable, his medals gleaming under the California sun like they had just been polished by the Queen herself. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't react to the swirling madness around him. Because Jack was trained for this. He had faced grueling boot camps, endless drills, and battle zones that would make a normal person's soul try to leave their body. But what he was about to face today, nothing could have prepared him for Karen Davis. The birth of a disaster. Karen Davis, 46 years old, a living, breathing customer complaint in human form. She had the classic short blonde, I need to speak to the manager haircut, a purse that probably cost more than an average car payment, and the unshakable confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences in her life. This was a woman who believed the world operated on Karen Standard Time, where everyone else's existence was just background noise to her personal main character storyline. And beside her, her golden child, Trevor Davis, 19 years old, a kid who had never worked a day in his life, but acted like he ran the stock market. Dressed in a hoodie that probably cost a small fortune, phone glued to his hand, Trevor had one mission in life: record anything that could get clicks. And today was his big moment. Is this guy even alive? Karen stood in front of Jack, tilting her head like she was trying to solve a math equation she didn't study for. This is ridiculous, she scoffed, arms folded. He is just standing there, doing absolutely nothing. What a joke! A couple of nearby tourists threw each other side eyes. They knew better than to engage with this level of energy. But Karen took silence as permission to keep going. I mean, come on. This is obviously fake. He is just a fancy department store mannequin in a costume. Trevor, already recording, grinned like a kid who just found a way to break the rules without getting caught. Mom, he said, what if he really cannot react? Like, what if we test it? Karen's eyes lit up like she had just been given the golden ticket to bad decisions. Oh, honey, she said, flipping her sunglasses up with the confidence of someone who thrived on making employees cry. Trust me, they literally cannot do anything. And with that, she turned back to Jack, a smug smirk creeping across her face. This is all for show, she declared, loud enough for everyone within earshot. He is just a fancy decoration. And then, it happened. Karen reached up, grabbed one of his medals, and yanked it clean off his uniform. The universe pauses. For a single horrifying second, time stopped existing. The sound of the busy street, gone. The background noise of tourists and traffic, vanished. The entire world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Jack's face, still a perfect mask of discipline. His body, unmoved. But his eyes twitched. Just the smallest shift, so minor that the average person might have missed it. But the crowd felt it. A wave of gasps swept through the people watching. Tourists took an instinctive step back, as if Karen had just defaced the Declaration of Independence. A security guard's radio crackled to life. We have a situation here. Phones shot up instantly, cameras rolling at light speed. Somewhere in the crowd, a teenage girl clutched her chest like she had just witnessed a crime against humanity. Oh no, she did not just do that. But Karen? Oh, Karen was still living in a world where she thought she was untouchable. She flipped the medal between her fingers, laughing like she had just won a game. Relax, people, she huffed. rolling her eyes. "It is just a piece of metal." And in that exact moment, Karma laced up its boots and got ready to sprint. T-minus 10 minutes to disaster. Let me set the scene for you. The crowd was still buzzing, whispering in that "I do not want to be involved, but I also really want to see how this plays out" kind of way. Phones were still up, still recording, because at this point, it was too good to miss. And at the center of it all, Karen Davis, a woman who, despite every single alarm bell blaring in the universe, still believed she was untouchable. There she stood, shoulders squared, arms crossed, her expression a mix of disbelief and pure indignation, as if the mere thought of someone questioning her actions was an offense against the laws of nature. Because in Karen's world, Karen was always right, and now she was face to face with authority, ready to explain why rules did not apply to her. Meet Captain Robert King, the man who had seen it all. Captain Robert King, a 50-year-old brick wall of a man, stood before her, exuding the quiet patience of someone who had long stopped being surprised by people's poor life choices. He had spent decades dealing with every type of nuisance Los Angeles could throw at him: reckless tourists, drunk celebrities, out-of-control influencers blocking traffic for the perfect selfie. He had seen things that could break a man's faith in humanity. But Karen was testing his last reserves of patience. His expression remained unreadable, but his eyes told a different story. The look of a man who had just realized that today was going to require an extra cup of coffee and maybe a long walk after work. "Ma'am, do you know what you just did?" Captain King's voice was steady, controlled, the kind of voice that had spent years dealing with unreasonable people without losing its cool. "Ma'am," he began, slow and deliberate, "do you understand that what you just did constitutes an offense against a member of the British Armed Forces?" The crowd held its breath. The energy shifted. Even the pigeons seemed to be watching. And then Karen laughed. "No, really." She laughed, a full dismissive laugh, like this was all just some hilarious misunderstanding. "An offense?" She cackled, shaking her head, waving a manicured hand as if she could shoo away the entire concept of consequences. "Oh, come on. Are you serious? The guy did not even react. How is this an offense? It was a joke." The way she said joke, you would think she had playfully tapped his shoulder instead of yanking a medal off his uniform in front of 50 witnesses and multiple recording devices. But Captain King, he was not laughing. Trevor and the online firestorm. While Karen was still fighting reality, like it was a customer service rep refusing to give her a refund, her pride and joy, Trevor, was doing what he did best, making things worse. Trevor was already deep into his phone, fingers moving at the speed of terrible decisions, crafting a post that would forever change the course of his mother's life. And with one tap, it was out there. "My mom literally just touched a medal and these guys are threatening to arrest her. What a joke. America, what is happening?" Within minutes, the post took off like a wildfire in high winds. People who had no idea what actually happened were already choosing sides, the internet doing what the internet does best, escalating. And while Trevor thought he was defending his mom, what he was really doing, handing the world a front row seat to her downfall. The news hits hard. Somewhere in a British newsroom, a reporter just found his career-defining story. Within the hour, Karen Davis was no longer just an entitled tourist in Los Angeles. She was now an international headline. Breaking news: American tourist insults Royal Guard, international outrage ensues, American woman disrespects British military demands action. Royal dishonor incident in Los Angeles sparks diplomatic drama. Outrage as tourist humiliates British officer, UK calls for explanation. It was everywhere. British tabloids, furious, social media, exploding, people across the world, absolutely losing it. And Karen still had no idea. Captain King gets the call. Just as Karen was mid-sentence, still lecturing the officers on why they should be thanking her for testing the guard's patience, Captain King's radio crackled. The room shifted. Something changed. Even Karen noticed it. "What now?" she snapped, rolling her eyes. Captain King took a slow breath. Then he brought the radio to his ear. There was a pause. Then, Captain, We have a situation. Captain King's face changed, not by much, but enough. Enough that the officers nearby all braced themselves. Karen narrowed her eyes. "What?" she demanded. "What now?" Captain King turned to her, expression unreadable. "Ma'am," he said, voice calm, controlled, like he was about to drop a bombshell in the politest way possible. "You might want to call a lawyer." Karen scoffed. "A lawyer for what? This is ridiculous." And then her phone buzzed. Then again, and again, and again. One look at the screen, and her entire world tilted on its axis. Because plastered across every single news site, social media feed, and notification she had was her own face, in a viral storm that she had no hope of escaping. And for the first time in her entire life, Karen Davis finally realized she was in deep, deep trouble. The morning after disaster, Karen Davis woke up with a sense of smug satisfaction. Yes, yesterday had been a mess. Yes, there had been cops, tourists, and a lot of yelling, but honestly, nothing she could not handle. People had always overreacted to her, especially when she was just standing up for herself. She had been in plenty of arguments before, and every single time she had won. Because that is how the world worked, right? All you had to do was push back hard enough, act confident, demand to speak to the right people, and eventually, everything goes away. She stretched, picked up her phone, and unlocked the screen. And that was when her entire life fell apart. Her face, everywhere. Her notifications would not stop. Hundreds, thousands, every single app, every single platform. She was all over the internet, and not in a good way. Her phone screen flooded with headlines. When entitlement goes too far, American tourist insults Royal Guard. This woman ruined her life in 5 seconds. Viral Karen causes diplomatic incident. Her hands started to sweat. No, this had to be some kind of mistake. Surely, this would all blow over. She clicked on TikTok, and that was when she saw just how bad it really was. TikTok, the meme machine. The first video that popped up, it was her, right there, on the For You page, playing in slow motion, the exact moment her hand yanked the metal off the Royal Guard's uniform. But this was not just a clip. Oh no, the internet had gotten creative. Dramatic music swelled in the background. An intense narrator whispered, "And that June was the moment her life changed forever." Cut to black. Then, in bold white text across the screen, "How to destroy your reputation in 5 seconds or less." She swiped down frantically, only to find more. The rise and fall of Karen Davis, a historical event. POV, you think the rules do not apply to you. A parody where someone reenacted the scene with a plastic Halloween crown, dramatically clutching their chest and falling over as if she had committed a crime against royalty. Millions of views. Her stomach twisted. She backed out of TikTok. Maybe Twitter was not as bad. Maybe there were people defending her. Maybe Twitter, the final nail in the coffin. The moment she opened Twitter, she knew she had no hope left. Her name? Trending worldwide. #KarenGate, #Royal Disrespect #. She really did that. And then she saw the worst possible thing. Because now, it was not just about the Royal Guard anymore. The internet dug into her past. See, when the internet decides it does not like you, it does not stop at one mistake. Oh no, it keeps digging. And for Karen Davis, they found everything. Old videos resurfaced, clips that had been forgotten, ignored, buried in time until now. One clip showed her kicking a young black man out of a coffee shop, claiming he looked suspicious. Another video of her screaming at a teenage cashier, demanding free food because her sandwich was unacceptable. And the worst one, a clip of her physically shoving a waitress at a restaurant because her wine was too warm. She was not just Karen Davis anymore. She was Karen Vector 3000, a name someone had given her on Twitter, implying she was a high-powered machine built entirely for complaining. And it stuck. YouTube joins the attack. If TikTok was the wildfire and Twitter was the courtroom, then YouTube was the crime documentary, because the reaction videos, they were everywhere. The internet just witnessed a train wreck. Did she really think she would get away with this? Oh, A complete breakdown of how this woman destroyed her own life. YouTubers were zooming in, analyzing her expressions, adding commentary, edits, and dramatic sound effects. "This is honestly incredible," one creator said. "Like, watch her face. Right here, you can actually see the exact second she realizes she made the biggest mistake of her life." The video paused on a freeze frame of Karen's stunned expression. Red arrows pointed at her eyes. Big bold text read, "When karma hits you in real time." She slammed her laptop shut. Her breath was shaky. This was beyond bad, and it was about to get worse. The meltdown. Karen did what any entitled person does when they feel backed into a corner. She grabbed her phone. She hit record. Her face appeared on screen, makeup smudged, hair messy, eyes wide with desperation. She took a deep breath. And then she began to rant. "This is a coordinated attack against me," she snapped, voice shaking with outrage. "They are twisting my actions into something they are not. This is an agenda against people like me, hardworking Americans." She glared at the camera. "This is harassment. This is cyberbullying. I will be taking legal action." She posted the video, and within minutes, it had more dislikes than views. The final blow, a message from the British government. Just as Karen was convincing herself that she could somehow turn this around, her phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Her eyes scanned the screen, and her stomach dropped. Because it was not just a viral scandal anymore. It was official. The British government had issued a formal statement. She clicked the article, heart pounding. The statement was clear, direct, and devastating. The actions of this individual were a blatant sign of disrespect toward an officer of the British Armed Forces. We expect accountability and responsibility for this unacceptable behavior. Karen felt the blood drain from her face. Her breathing turned shallow. This was not just an internet controversy anymore. This was real. Her entire body went cold. Because for the first time in her entire life, Karen Davis finally understood what it felt like to have no power. There was no manager she could call. There was no corporate hotline to complain to. No one was coming to save her. And for the first time ever, Karen Davis was out of options. The silence after the storm. Karen Davis sat in her dimly lit living room, the blue glow of her phone screen the only source of light. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that only comes after you have lost everything. She had not slept. Not really. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it. The headlines, the memes, the disgusted looks of strangers, the laughter. Her face was everywhere, and she had no one left to call. No more excuses. No more arguments. No more demanding to see the manager. Because now, she was the problem. And for the first time in her entire life, there was no one left to blame but herself. The first realization, she had no job. The official email came at 6:42 a.m. No greeting, no small talk, just pure corporate efficiency. "Miss Davis, due to recent events, we believe it is in the company's best interest to part ways. Your employment has been terminated effective immediately." Translation: "You are too toxic for us to deal with." Karen stared at the screen, rereading the email at least 10 times, her brain refusing to accept it. She had been with the company for years. She had seniority, connections. How could they just cut her off like this? Her fingers trembled as she clicked on her work email. Access denied. She tried logging into the company portal. Account deactivated. It was like she had never even worked there. Her entire career erased. And it hit her like a ton of bricks. She had no income, no recommendations, no chance of getting another job. Because who in their right mind would hire Karen Vector 3000? Her chest tightened. She had always thought she was untouchable, but the real world, it just proved her wrong. The second realization, she had no friends. By noon, she had exhausted every possible contact in her phone. Old coworkers left her on read, acquaintances blocked her number, her so-called friends, nowhere to be found. Karen sat in disbelief, phone limp in her hands. Sure, she had never been the warm and fuzzy type, but she had always assumed that at least a few people had her back. She scrolled through her group chats, the ones she used to dominate with complaints about bad service, slow baristas, and how kids these days had no respect. Every single one of them, silent. Or worse, she had been kicked out. Her last desperate attempt, she called her best friend Cynthia. It rang twice before Cynthia picked up. "Karen," she said, voice cold, "I cannot be seen talking to you right now." "What?" Karen snapped. "Cynthia, this is ridiculous. This is a witch hunt. They are click." She had hung up. Karen stared at her phone in shock, then furious realization. They were all cowards, abandoning her, turning on her. Fine. She did not need them. She could fix this herself. The public humiliation. At 3 p.m., she stepped outside for the first time in days. She needed air, a change of scenery, a moment where she could just breathe without thinking about the mess she had created. She walked into her usual cafe, head held high, trying to act normal. The second she stepped up to the counter, the barista, a young guy who usually never paid attention to her, looked up. His expression shifted. It was subtle, but she caught it. The way his smile disappeared, the way his shoulders stiffened, the way he immediately turned to his coworker and whispered something. Karen felt a familiar anger bubble up, that same righteous indignation that had gotten her through 1,000 other situations just like this. But then, "Sorry, ma'am," the barista said, voice completely flat. "We are out of coffee today." Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" "We are out," he repeated. "Nothing left." She looked past him, directly at the steaming coffee pots behind the counter. A guy behind her in line ordered a latte and got it. The barista did not even try to hide it. Karen felt her stomach twist. This was not about the coffee. She was blacklisted. And if a random cafe was refusing to serve her, what else was coming? The housing nightmare. By 4 p.m., she decided, fresh start, new home, new address, new place where nobody would recognize her. She pulled up real estate listings, found a perfect apartment that was just within her budget, assuming she could get a job again, and started making calls. The first call, straight to voicemail. The second, blocked number. By the fourth attempt, she got a text. A single line. "We do not rent to people like you." Her heart stopped. She tried another place. Same result. One landlord even emailed her back. "Due to your public behavior, we do not believe you would be a good fit for our community." It was official. She could not even get a place to live. The final humiliation, the parking lot. Incident at 6:30 p.m. She drove to the grocery store, trying to ignore the way people stared at her in the aisles. She grabbed the essentials, got to her car, threw the bags in the trunk, and then her car refused to start. She turned the key again and again, but nothing. And then she heard it. The whispers. People had noticed. A few pulled out their phones. One guy walked past and smirked, and then, in a voice just loud enough for her to hear, "Guess karma does not take days off." Karen's breath caught. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. She was trapped. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to hide. No one to help her. And for the first time in her entire life, she felt small. Trevor erased himself. At 8 p.m., she finally tried calling Trevor, straight to voicemail. She checked his social media. Gone. His entire presence wiped off the internet. Her own son had erased himself to avoid being connected to her. Karen felt sick, and just when she thought it could not get worse, she found the divorce papers waiting for her on the kitchen counter, the final moment of realization. At 10 p.m., she turned on the TV, and there he was, Jack Collins. The Royal Guard she had humiliated, but now he was not standing still in uniform. He was receiving a promotion. Karen stared in silence. He had won. And she? She had become a warning, a living, breathing example of how one moment of arrogance can destroy everything. And the worst part, she had done it to herself. How would you have reacted if you were in Jack Collins's position? Would you have stayed as composed or handled it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever experienced a situation where a person thought the rules did not apply to them? How did it turn out? Tell us your story. Hit the like button if you believe justice should always prevail, and share this video to spread awareness about the importance of respect and accountability. This story was created for a good cause, to highlight an important issue and encourage positive change. The world becomes a better place when we treat each other with understanding and respect. Your opinion matters,